G'day, mates. The time has come for part 2 of our Aussie series. We welcome two fellas from down under, Adrian from That Whiskey Place and Vic Whiskey, to chat about Aussie whiskey, rock in the 80s and 90s, and AM radio? Pour a dram, sit down, put your feet up, grab some Tim Tams, and enjoy the episode. Hey, Ed, you're late. Hey everybody, it's Sailor here, and we are upside down tonight. I mean, we have guests from down under.
Upside down again.
It's a very special night here.
Actually, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, well, I was just going to say that we are continuing the ongoing joke. We're continuing our Aussie series. It's been a while, I know. There was a few shows in between. Our last show being probably one of the funniest shows we've ever done, hands down. The response was pretty amazing, and it took me a long time to recover, but we're back to the discussion about Australia and the music and the whiskey, and we decided to have two of our friends from down under join us. We have Adrian and Vic here tonight to school us on what true Aussie culture is.
we brought in the experts.
Well done.
We did. Yeah. And I believe, Adrian, you have some corrections that need to happen right here at the top of the show.
Yes. Well, look, just in response to part one, just some minor corrections, you could say.
How much time do we have?
It wasn't that bad.
Give it to us.
Yeah, look, even though it's spelt Aussie, as in Aussie, it's actually pronounced Aussie, as in Ozzy Osbourne. Yeah, that's just an easier way. I realised it was said Aussie, I think you were saying it, and I did cringe a little bit. But anyway, you get that. Marmite's actually British.
Terrible of me to pronounce it as it's spelled. What was I thinking?
Who would have thought it? And yeah, so excuse me. Yeah, Marmite's more British, more popular. It's a bit runnier than the Vegemite cousin that it is. And yeah, Crowded House from New Zealand, not Australia.
That I really thought they were from Australia. I don't know why.
Yeah, no. Neil and Tim Finn originally from New Zealand.
Isn't New Zealand our third and fourth island of the Australian archipelago?
Oof, I don't think they would agree with that. Jeez.
No.
You're trying to start some
take that up with
here.
them. Yeah.
I think I've just lost all my New Zealand followers.
Yeah, I think so. New Zealand followers, we are sorry. We love you. Don't leave.
All right, now we got to do a New Zealand episode.
Now we do.
Come on.
Yep.
Yeah.
It'll just be Crowded House and Russell Crowe, but anyway.
Oh, shots fired.
Yeah. Russell Crowe is Kiwi.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's better than having Mel Gibson. Sorry. Wah, wah, wah.
That's why we gave him to you.
We are missing one of our brothers tonight. Ed is out being a knight in shining armor. He is rescuing his daughter from a broken down car, so hopefully he'll be jumping on. Otherwise, we're just gonna have to do a show without him, and he should just send us his samples of whiskey since he didn't make it. So that's my thoughts on that. But before we get into the discussions of the night, which we're going to learn a bit about Australian whiskey, and we're going to talk about what it was like for these fellas to grow up in Australia and, you know, their experience growing up with music and rock. before we do that, Matt, do we have any current news to talk about?
The news bank for me is dry, other than I would say, well, I guess it is news. I mean, we did lose a few great musicians in the time since we recorded our last episode. So,
yes.
Unfortunately, Joey Jordison of Slipknot. We lost Dusty Hill of ZZ Top, and Mike Howe of Metal Church. Unfortunately, yes. And as I said on Instagram, these things tend to happen in threes. Usually, we've seen it before in the course of this, and it happened again. So it just really sucks. Really sucks. Love all three of those guys.
Yeah, we covered ZZ Top. I think we did a double header with ZZ Top, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we did a 5-way battle or something.
Yeah. So go back through the archives, guys, if you want to listen to that episode. So tonight, pour one out for Dusty and all of his contributions to music. So, all right, we got that shit out of the way. By the way, if you still have comments about our pizza episode, we still want to hear them. So please write in, let us know who's right and who's wrong. I mean, that Ed's wrong. We get it. We know already, but, we just need the evidence. So continue to tell us what you think about pizza versus casserole and a crust. And then I'll just leave that there since he's not on the show.
Even burying him when he's not here.
he's a trooper, I'll tell you.
Yeah. He took a lashing.
Yes, he did
last time. Yeah.
So Matt, do you want to take us into the whiskey section after a little song?
Yes.
Let's do it.
Sorry for the car crash. We hope you don't mind. We've killed all your family and loved ones and let the pieces behind. Sorry for the accident. We didn't mean to cause. We'll take all the light and the glory and let the pain be yours.
That was Rat Cat with Car Crash.
And I'll drink to that. One of the best Australian bands ever.
Very underrated band. All right. So as Sailor said before that song, we are going to talk about whiskey now. And guys, I always say, if you heard any of the other shows that we've done before, whiskey might be the third word in the title of our show, but it is not the least important by far. This is where we basically go around and we shoot the shit about what we're drinking. So we always start with our guests. So Adrian, Vic, which one of you guys want to go first about what you're drinking tonight?
All right, Vic. Sorry. Tonight I have, well, it's today for me. It's 10 in the morning, so it's only a small snifter. But I'm getting used to this backwards camera. I have Wild River. Now, Wild River Elevation, this is batch 1. I've just finished it. So as you can see, it's a bottle kill. This was released a couple of years ago. It's a very small husband and wife team that produced this whiskey up on the Atherton Tablelands. So just trying to think. With Australia, it's up near Cairns. Cairns is top right-hand corner, Great Barrier Reef, etc. So it's a really humid climate up there. Now, where Wild River is situated, they're about an hour and a half west up on the Tablelands. So hence the name Elevation. And it's over 1,000 meters. I can't remember exactly. I should have done my research a bit. 1,300 meters higher. So it's a lot cooler, and it's there's some big temperature variations. So therefore, they get the most out of their wood. All Australian, and it's one of the best that I've ever had. And he released batch 3 on the weekend, which sold out within, I don't know, Vic, what was it, an hour?
2 hours,
something like
just under 2 hours, sold out completely. Amazing.
I feel like this is something that we're going to need
that's a good
refer to several times as the map of Australia.
Unfortunately, for those listening, you cannot see, but we have a map of Australia up right now from worldatlas.com.
Yes.
World.
If you want to follow along at home.
Yeah, but if you're watching on
I'm
YouTube,
actually
so
in,
you can see the map.
excuse
And
me.
last time on the show, we were drinking Hobart, right?
Correct.
So
All right,
that's
so-
Distillery.
Yep.
So
In
what
Hobart. Yep.
what you're talking about is what? Tell me again what area that is in reference to this
All right.
map.
See how the top right hand corner it says Cairns, CAIRNS,
Yep.
right up top of the tip, right hand side. So
Oh wow.
that's that's where I grew up actually, just in that area.
Oh.
So Great Barrier Reef, very tourist orientated, very hot and humid, but Wild River about an hour inland,
Uh-oh.
elevated as well, so up on the tableland. So yeah, it's a really different, nice area, and the whiskey that they provide, second to none. And I'm really sorry that you can't smell this because it's red gum, which is not the Australian band, which we'll probably talk about later, but it's a type of wood that they use, ex Jack Daniel's barrel, and really, really phenomenal stuff. My nosing notes and everything aren't the best. I just like what I smell and like what I drink. So for describing it, I think Vic is he's the one with the nose.
So you said ex Jack Daniel's barrel. Is this is that a consistent thing that they do, or is it only for this expression?
I think he's done about 3. He's done all of his elevations in the Jack Daniel's barrel. He has got other barrels. He's experimenting with 4 grains, and he's got a heap coming that I can't really talk too much about because we're friends with Wes, and we're really excited with what he's coming up with for just being a really small backyard distillery. So
It's really cool.
yeah, I'll be sure to send you some when I get the new bottle, hopefully
amazing.
next week.
Awesome. Thank you. That
Yes,
sounds
yes, it
amazing.
is.
I'd love to try that. So it's an interesting, starting right off, kind of we're hitting the discussion of terroir, which we talk about often on the show, and which is a really incredibly important discussion. I mean, Australians now are known for, being one of the biggest New World wine producers, and, you have award-winning wines. And, I know that it's not new for you guys, new for the rest of the world, new-ish, I guess. I should say, but terroir plays such an important part in everything that we grow, whether we eat it or drink it. So again, very similar to the US, you guys have a vast amount of different climates in your country, correct? So what we were drinking on the last show and what you're drinking now, completely different climates. Would you say that's accurate?
Yes. Absolutely. Tasmania is a lot cooler, well, a lot colder for the one of it, because you can't really see on the map, but it's probably just I'm thinking flight wise, 3 hours, Sydney to Cairns, and to get to Tasmania from Sydney is probably another 2 hours south. So there's like a 5-hour flight between the north and the south. So that's to give you a bit of an idea of distance. And it's definitely big differences in the weather there for sure.
Awesome. That's really cool. But I don't think of Australia like that. I primarily think of, the beaches, and then I think of the outback, being desert and dry and acrid, and that's pretty much it. That's pretty much what I and I just assumed your coasts were similar to the California coast, where they would be dry as well still, but on the coast. So yeah, learn something new every day.
Yeah, well, up north around Cairns, it's very tropical as well. So rainforest, Daintree rainforest, and very green. It's also very wet as well. So we've got a bit of everything here in Australia, which is good. And you're not wrong about the deserts in the middle, and we've just got everything. So, and we've got distillers all over. We've got distillers in Perth, which is on the west coast, and right down south, one of the ones, those Floreals I sent you the message in a bottle, that's down near Adelaide. Yeah. Sorry,
Okay.
my throat's really going.
I'll continue.
I'll fix it.
Well, you catch Hey, you're right. You're good.
I am now.
Nothing like some whiskey.
Absolutely.
So I'm referring
feel
to
free
the
to jump
map,
in, Vic.
the map again. And so, okay, so Adelaide, I see. So Adelaide is, but not as far down as Tasmania. So
Yeah. Adelaide
you.
and Perth on the left, on the west coast, is where the big great whites are. You can actually dive with the great whites in Adelaide.
no
And
thanks.
I'll
there's
skip
a
that.
tour.
Yeah.
No, you dive inside
Poor Lincoln.
a cage. You dive
No,
inside
thanks.
a cage,
I'm good.
and they've got tours. No, you should really try it because they've got tours, and you go to swim with the seals, and it's great.
Here's Ed.
Great experience. Oh, here's Head. Hello.
There he is.
Oh my God. What a day. What a day.
You made it.
G'day.
G'day, mate. How you
Hey,
going?
go on.
Oh, shoot.
Well,
Oh,
nice of
man.
you to join us, Ed.
Yeah. Glad I could make it. Almost didn't.
We just started talking about whiskey, and Adrian was sharing with us what he was drinking. We were talking a little bit about the different climates, the different, they've got, jungle climate. We talked last time about Tasmania and, desert climate and so on. So we're just discussing that a little bit as far as origins for some of these whiskeys.
Sweet. All right.
So Vic, what are you drinking tonight?
I've started with a rum from the same place as Adrian whiskey, Wild River, and I'm waiting on the whiskey. I actually did not send this rum to Ed because it had not been released yet, and it's great. He actually aged this rum on whiskey barrel, so
Okay.
it's great.
Is it a
It's
bourbon
great.
barrel? Do you know if it's bourbon or Scotch barrel or what type of whiskey barrel?
The Australian whiskey. So what he's done, he used another bourbon barrel, and he distilled some whiskey, threw it in there. Well, it wasn't whiskey, it became distillate. Threw it in there, aged it, and then he refilled it with the rum, and it's amazing. But since we are talking about whiskey, I'm going to Georgia. Now, Georgia is about an hour and a half, an hour drive south from where I am. I'm in the outskirts of Sydney, 60k, which is about 50 miles out of Sydney, south of Sydney. And it's, again, like most distilleries in Australia, husband and wife, they have Spanish heritage. So they age most of their, 99% of their spirit in ex-Spanish sherry, mainly Pedro Ximénez PX barrels. So it's a very sweet, I've got a sweet tooth, so I love it. It's not everyone's cup of tea, especially the cask strength.
Mm-hmm.
And the cask strength comes in at 64.1%, so 128.2. The weather down there, imagine a valley, where would it be in the US? Oh yeah, there you go. Rocky Mountains. Imagine at the base of the Rocky Mountains, and there's a nice distillery there. Imagine go back 100 years, and there's a little township. There's a lot of shale rock, and there's a little township being formed, mainly Scottish migrants. And all of a sudden, boomed to a few thousand people. And of course, being Scottish, they had to make some whiskey there. They had the high school, they had the school, they had everything there. So they're mining shale, and that's what Georgia is. It's an historic township. The shale ran out. They had their own stream, of course. The shale ran out. They moved out. Everything went to ruins. And a few years ago, someone decided to, if I'm talking too fast, you let me know because I get excited when I start talking about these guys.
You're fine. You're fine.
And so a few years ago, actually a couple of dozen years ago, a guy decided to start a distillery there. It didn't go very well. Not that the planning was poor. It's isolated, and government does not help anyone in Australia. There's no incentives for any of the distillers. If anything, you get crushed by tax. I said this to everyone. I said this to everyone in my live, so everyone I speak to. In Australia, where there's a federal tax which applies to all imports of spirits and anyone making spirit in Australia, which is $85 per litre of alcohol that you distill or import. So if you bring in, for example, 2 litres of bib bottled in bond, which is 50%, half. So you bring in 2 litres, which the total of alcohol on that is 1 litre. So those 2 bottles of 1 litre, 2 1 litre bottles you bring into Australia, you will be paying straight away $85 federal tax to the government. Straight up. That's why bourbon is so expensive in Australia, and even Scotch. Also, imagine a couple doing their dream, distilling, making whiskey. You know, they have daytime jobs. Wes and Amy up in North. Adrian was talking about Wild River. And Valero and Elisa down south, Georgia. They all have jobs, daytime jobs. Because every pure litre of alcohol they make, they get smashed, absolutely thrown against the wall by the government, Australian government, with federal tax. Now, if you're one of the bigger boys and you start exporting, you start getting some of the money back to rebates. For example, Starward. Everything that Starward sends over there to you guys, they do not pay the federal tax, the 80%, which is an incentive to export. But in my personal opinion, as a whiskey drinker and as a proud Australian, we should help our distillers a bit more. Now, this whiskey, if you guys want to stop for a break, you let me know. I could go all day long. Now, this is like a sucking on a lollipop. Sweet. It's got sweet caramels, a lot of vanilla. Not that Scotch vanilla that you would expect from a cold weather whiskey. It is a single malt, and now they do grain to we call it paddock to bottle, because we call our fields paddocks. So it's field to bottle. Just now they grow their own barley, 100% barley, aged on exclusively Pedro Ximénez cask. This one here, and it's wonderful. If you like PX casks, if you like Scotch,
that's my favorite. Those are my
this is for
my
you.
absolute favorite. Matt, you're a big fan too, right, of ex-sherry casks?
Oh hell yeah!
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I have to send you guys some of these. Hopefully, it will not
Sounds
break.
phenomenal.
But one last thing, they are a bit exposed to the weather, not as much. They're like sort of like up in Cairns, Wes is on a plateau, so it doesn't get the really extreme humidity, extreme heat. It still gets hot. These guys are in the valley, but occasionally you get the really stinking hot days. And the old abandoned mines, there's a few tunnels down there. So Valero is going to throw a few barrels in there, and it will be a very similar aging process as in Scotland. So you have to realize these guys are in a valley. They've got their own spring water, which they use. So very similar to Scotland. Mm-hmm. So it will be very interesting to put them up against, say, a Macallan 12 sherry cask, or even a Fine Oak, the triple cask, something like that. And by the way, guys, in Australia, due to our quick aging process, due to the weather, it's 2 years. So in 2 years, you can call a bottle, you can call a spirit whiskey after 2 years, 24 months. Most people age them for 30 months. It's the average Australian whiskey. So cheers.
Interesting. Cheers. That sounds phenomenal.
Yeah.
And a true sense of place.
Wow.
Well, damn. Matt, what are you drinking?
Well, of course, for an episode about Australia and everything Australia with guests from Australia, I had to drink American whiskey. So no, honestly, I had the Starward Nova and I finished it last time that we recorded, so I didn't replenish, so I apologize. But I did pick up, as I told you, Sailor, Sazerac Rye, the 6-year Sazerac Rye, and that is what I'm drinking tonight. And you know, I might piss some people off with this that are listening, that are real, like those diehard Buffalo Trace drinkers, but this is not as good as I remember it being, unfortunately. I'm actually pretty disappointed in it, honestly. Drinking it straight right now.
I remember tell you this. Yeah. I feel like I don't know. There's a huge shift happening, of course, in Buffalo Trace, and I can taste the shift.
And we talk about it too. Your palate grows the more that you drink. The older you get, it shifts, it changes. You go back to something that you loved and you haven't had in 7, 8, 9 years, and you might not like it. You might find different notes. It might have evolved and grown on you and gotten better. But it's been a number of years since I've had this, and to me, just drinking it right now, it's just extremely thin, and it lacks that depth of what I remember it being, which is a lot of dark fruit and citrus, and it's just completely sterile tasting to me. It's the weirdest thing, but like you said, it speaks to what you just said, Sailor, about that.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it's been a long time since we talked about flavor drift on the show, and just when the big distilleries are making shifts to meet demand, and you do what you got to do, but I think the newer whiskey drinkers might not notice, or if that's what they're introduced to, that's what they know. But for me, I stopped drinking the Sazerac rye a while ago. I use it; it's great in cocktails. I use it as a cocktail whiskey.
Yeah.
So that's what its purpose is. But I used to love Sazerac rye, and I think it's a combination of my palate growing. I've definitely outgrown ryes. I wish I would say like maybe mid-shelf ryes, American ryes, as I've been drinking Scotch a lot more, Highland Scotch. But when I do go back to the ryes, I'm looking for something that actually has what it's supposed to, what everybody thinks rye is supposed to have. Who knows that if that's what it's supposed to have, but the true spicy, dry, acrid whiskey. And that does not have it. That does not fit the bill.
And I've had so many of those in the last even 2 years that fit that dry, spicy flavor profile, the classic American rye that you're looking for. And I've had so many of those that have just been A+. And then when I go back to something like this, or even like Pikesville, dare I say, it's not the same, unfortunately.
Oh,
I don't think I would know it in a blind anymore. I think if I don't think I would know what it was anymore. The Sazerac.
Yeah.
Do you think they could have changed the mash bill?
No, I think it's just a change. No, I think it's a like I said, it's a mixture of change in production. When you're upping production, you're making changes and shifts, and also our palates. It's ever evolving and ever changing, especially because right now is probably the best time ever. I mean, I'm sure in 10 years it'll be even better, but it's the best time to be a whiskey drinker in the U.S. We have so many craft distilleries. And Adrian and I were talking about this before the show. Our craft distilleries, we desperately need them, because otherwise we'll be drinking that subpar Sazerac for the rest of our lives with 4 other Kentucky bourbons, but we need the innovation. We need the creativity. We need the experimentation. We need different terroir. Now we finally have distilleries on the West Coast. We have distilleries in the mountains. We've got, they're all over the place, and that's fairly new for us. So I think it's shifted our palates a lot. And unless you're someone that just sticks to one category of whiskey, I think you're going to find yourself disappointed often. So perhaps instead of us being disappointed, we should just kind of celebrate the fact that our palates have changed. I don't know. I mean, commercial whiskey tastes, let's just face it, commercial whiskey tastes different than non-commercial whiskey.
I agree with you, and I think part of the reason is now that there is so many craft distilleries coming out with products now, it's kind of like the veil has been lifted.
Yes.
All of a sudden we're discovering all these wonderful craft, small, grain to glass distillers, and we're being opened up to a whole new world. And then all of a sudden these mass produced giant mega distilleries, their distillate isn't tasting the same as it used to, because we're getting accustomed to the stuff that's special. To
true flavor, to true, again, I'm sorry to harp on the word terroir, but it's a sense of place and a taste. I mean, I look back at wine when I was first, getting into the wine when I was before whiskey early in my career. And there was this argument over New World wines, quote unquote, which was such an ignorant point of view because, and let's use Australia, for example. I mean, you already had third and fourth generation Italians, let's just use them as an example, or Spaniards that have been cultivating grapes in Australia for generations, but we're calling it New World wine. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure we're the New World. I'm just saying, like, you know, I don't know that any of us should be saying the word New World wines, but we had to break the world out of French and Italian wine, and that was all you had, right? And then we got, you know, Chilean wine, and you know, and then we have wineries in the U.S. that, you know, in other places than California, and it's a similar thing that happened. And now you don't bat an eye when you see a local winery. You don't even, right? When you guys agree that if you see a winery in Ohio or wherever, you're not like, oh, I wonder what that's like. You're just like, oh, there's a winery. It's going to be the same with distilleries as well. So
yeah, it's become pretty much ubiquitous at this point.
Yeah. But I think you're right. I think I notice commercial distillate, and that's what I'm not enjoying. And I think it's exactly what you said, Ed. We are exposed to so many different flavors, and just I don't know if you want to say higher quality. I mean, that's subjective, of course, but just more true taste, I would say, more true flavor. And again, the experimentation, breaking from the norm. You know, I've gotten into so many arguments with people about Uncle Nearest whiskey and the fact that Tennessee whiskey is bourbon. Period. It is. The end. This is not an argument anymore. People need to get over it. But also, that extra step of filtration does make for a more premium whiskey, just by definition. And that people want to argue that with me. And I'm like, well, what makes a premium and what doesn't then? Because then every single craft whiskey should be premium, and Buffalo Trace and anything they make should be bottom shelf, right? So I mean, you can't have that one argument and only put it in. It's ridiculous. So I think that, you know, I just think we're lucky that we get to live in this time of whiskey. I think we're lucky that we have the technology that we have tonight, so that we can share nights like this with people on the other side of the world who can send us samples of whiskey. I mean, samples of olive oil. And we can taste, you know, the sense we can taste what their terroir is like, in the sense of place in these little bottles. It's incredible. I think we're just really, really lucky.
Absolutely.
Well said.
So since you brought that up, this last weekend, I visited our local distillery here in DeKalb, Illinois, where I grew up, and got a hold of this Distiller's Reserve. It's their straight rye whiskey, but it's barrel. It's straight from the barrel. I mean, Sailor, when you were here, I gave you a sample of their rye. It's a true. This place was the second estate distillery in the United States. There's more that have been opened up since, but they're a second. They grow their own grain. They use their own water from their limestone aquifer under their property. I mean, it's all in this bottle. Everything on their property. And it's fantastic. You taste something like this, and it's like Pappy Who. You know? Oh
God, please. Let's not open up that can of worms. I do not have the energy tonight for that discussion.
But anyway, I won't harp on that. Just had to bring that up since the subject came up.
Never heard of him.
But in my glass tonight, I am very fortunate to have something special. It was sent to me by Vic himself. I was saving it for tonight. It's you're going to have to help me with the pronunciation. Joaja?
That's correct.
There you go. Distillery. Cask strength, Australian single malt. And I guess it's aged in Oloroso cask.
I think that one is a double wood. So you've got an ex-bourbon cask,
yes,
and an ex-Oloroso.
My favorite.
Okay, I had bourbon written down there for a reason. That was why. Yeah.
So that's the one I have here.
I tell you what, man.
I'm so jealous. Double woods are my favorite.
And
This-
that's their first, sorry to interrupt, that's batch 11, and that is their first paddock or field to bottle release. That was the first time that they grew their grain. So that was released last year. So 3 years ago, they planted some barley, a field of barley. They grew, they harvested, they malted it, and then they brew it, of course, they distilled it, and they put it in the barrels. 50% on, I think it was 2 barrels all up. I think it was 2 or 3 barrels all up, and 50% ex-bourbon barrels from the States. It's a trade secret, the brand. They don't want to tell the brand, which is absolutely, I respect that. And some ex-La Rosa casks. So there you go. You're drinking some great Australian single malt whiskey. I hope you like it.
I am a fan of there's many whiskeys I've had that have been finished in Oloroso cask or a Madeira cask that adds a little bit more depth of flavor to it. I really enjoy. But this, I could sit here, honestly, I could smell this all night and be happy. It is just, it is wonderful. I'm going to eat. Go ahead.
That's one of the features of Australian whiskies, especially the craft distilleries. We have some distilleries that have grown. They're not craft distilleries anymore. Still great. But from the smaller guys, the nosing, it's just phenomenal. And it's a great trait of Australian whiskey. It's great. I'm so happy I could share that with you guys.
Are they using pot still? What kind
bottle.
of stills are they using, Vic, in this distillery?
Okay, he's got a pot still. He's got this massive pot still, which was hand built in Tasmania, because at the time they were the only place they could get. Tasmania, it's the Queen Island of whiskey in Australia. There's more distilleries in Tasmania than in all over Ireland.
Wow.
Believe it or not. Yeah, it's one of the cleanest waters there. So, like you said before, Ed, the bottle that you were holding up, it's exactly the same. Everything that's gone into your glass there or in this bottle, everything is from the Georgia town, this local town.
Fantastic.
Everything.
Yeah, I love that. That is wonderful.
And it's a creek, like a small spring water basically, and very mineral rich. What you guys don't realize is I'm not taking anything from anyone, but some of the distilleries, I'm sure it happens in the States too. We have a few in Australia in the main cities, and they use tap water. So you cannot use tap water, obviously, to make whiskey. You have to filter it, and you have to strip all the content out of it, all the chemical content out of it, all the minerals, everything, and impurities, of course, and chemicals. So doing that, all the minerals are gone. And then they have to add some things to it to make it water again. Now, these guys, I respect craft distilleries. That's the number one reason why I will always remain faithful to them. They use the water that's given to them. Up north in Cairns, the Wild River, they use underground water. Down Georgia, they use the spring water coming straight. The river goes right past the property. And of course, they test the water and everything. And that's one thing that us as whiskey drinkers should always ask the question, where is the water coming from?
Not just
the grain.
Oh man, this is, if you like raisins, that concentrated dried dark fruit.
Yes.
Oh my God. That's what this is. It's like opening up a bag of raisins and just sticking your nose in there. It's so good. And or even like prunes.
And it changes. You can get similarities to some of the high, well, top shelf, I should say. Some of the big boys in Scotland, like the Macallan and the Glenrothes, from that ex-bourbon cask. That brings in that little bit of spice to cut the sweetness.
I mean, forget your imports, man. You got a gem right here.
Yes, we do.
Holy smokes!
Love.
Oh my God, this is
jealous.
amazing. Thanks for sending this. Oh my God,
I'll send some
this
to Matt and Sailor.
Yeah, you need.
Thank you.
This is
I would
amazing.
love to try it. Sounds amazing.
Thank you.
Sounds amazing.
I'm
Well,
just kind of
Cheers.
lost for words at this point. So
I
good.
also got the opportunity to taste some more Australian whiskeys that Adrian sent me. Thank you, Adrian. And I will tell you, unfortunately, tonight I am not drinking because I am sick. And doctor said I'm not allowed to drink for 10 days. So he sent me 4. I tasted 2 and wrote my notes down. And then the other 2 I will do on our next show. So first what I tasted was the Mad Dog Morgan from, how do you pronounce it, Adrian? How do you say it?
Corowa.
Corowa. Okay, from Corowa Distillery.
Corowa, yeah. Mhm.
And so this is from the southeast, is that right? Of the country?
It's down on the New South Wales Victorian border, I believe.
Let's refer to
Yeah,
our
well,
map
since
again.
That's right.
Yeah, get the map out again.
That's right.
Okay. So, okay. And where's it? Say where it's from again. Sorry. Oh shit! What I just do? Okay. There we go.
That's good. That's good. You went to the New South Wales map, the map of our state.
Oh, okay. So it's in New South Wales, which
It's a
is
very small
I'm just trying
township.
to
You might
think
not
where it
find it.
is.
got it.
It's down south. It's down south. It's a very small township. It's a farm, and the great thing about this guy is he helps the township. He has his own cattle. It's a cattle farm. Have you? Oh, you guys have to try Australian beef. When you guys come to Australia, you have to
I'll
try
leave
it.
I'm down.
If you think our whiskey
That's
is
another
good,
podcast.
Yeah, that's
think
a whole
our
other
whiskey is
podcast.
great.
Okay, you got to tell me what's special about Australian beef.
No,
What-
let's not
what's-
talk about Australian
What
beef.
are they
Oh,
fed?
bloody
Is it,
hell.
Let's
is
talk
it
about
grass-fed?
Ed.
Oh,
Let's
sorry.
talk about the rye I'm
Fuck meat.
drinking and then
Come
move
on.
on to the music. So otherwise we're gonna be here all fucking night. So as I was saying, I got to taste the Mad Dog Morgan, which is 92 ABV. And so it's funny because I could have saved my speech till now and gone right into this, because this is exactly what I was talking about. The bold, super dry, spicy, chocolatey, really, it had a beautiful viscosity to it. And I don't find that often with rye unless it's a barrel proof. Super, super tasty. This was spot on for a rye. I mean, just everything you would expect. So many baking spices in here. I mean, just layers and layers, and just a really long finish. And when I say bold, it didn't hit me in the face. It was just present immediately. The taste, the palate was just like the nose. That's a big deal for those of you that are new whiskey drinkers that are listening, or not whiskey drinkers. You know, I mean, you can have this with other things. I have this, let's use beer as an example. I love the way IPAs smell, and it tricks me every fucking time because I can't stand the taste. And I'll smell someone drinking it, and they'll be like, "You want to taste?" I'm like, "Yeah, this one's gonna be good. I'm finally gonna taste one that I like." And then it kills my palate for like 3 days. So it smelled and tasted exactly this. They matched up, which is beautiful. This was just killer. I absolutely loved this. And then I had the straight rye from the Gospel Distillers. And so this one is 90 ABV. And this one was very different than the Mad Dog Morgan, which I really enjoyed. That I felt they were so different from each other. And so this one was a lot of sweetness to it, vanilla. It gave me, similar to what I got from the Mad Dog Morgan, the things I want from a traditional rye, but it had layers of caramel, vanilla, custard, kind of creaminess to it. It had a really nice mouthfeel. I mean, again, this one was just out of the park. These were 2 phenomenal ryes. I would absolutely, you know, if they were on the shelf here regularly, have these on my bar shelf. They were just full of flavor and unique flavor, different. I would know these are not American ryes. Definitely, if I tasted them blind, I definitely would know this is something else. Not that I can put my finger on what it is exactly, but it's definitely a very different flavor. I loved them. So thank you.
Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed them.
Absolutely. So yay for Australian whiskey. I think we all agree that we are fans. And let's see if we all agree on music now, though, shall we?
I was stumbling around blind, like a wreck I came to you. So I staggered through the night.
All right, that was Burn Your Name from Powderfinger. All right, so since we started the show with Adrian correcting us on Crowded House, one of my favorite bands ever, they are Kiwi, they are not Aussies. So Adrian, when we first talked about this, you felt very strongly about several bands that you wanted to make sure we covered. So I'm going to let you kick it off with your favorite Australian rock bands. Doesn't matter what generation they're from, just your favorites.
Well, look, I grew up with AC/DC, like a lot of guys around my age. But look, they're still going. And
I thought we weren't allowed to call them AC/DC.
Oh, what are you going to call it? Akadaka.
There we go. Now it feels like a real.
She just wanted to hear you say it.
I know, but it's more Akadaka, like an old machine gun. That's how you used to think. But excuse me.
Akadaka.
But yeah.
Okay.
But and look, everyone was listening to AC/DC, and I just like to be a little bit different. And I first listened to a band called the Angels back in the middle of the 80s, and they were really stuck with those guys. They're I'm just trying to think now. They're very popular pub band, sort of in the early 80s, probably even the late 70s. And I managed to see them twice in Cairns, just a really good pub band, and just grew and stuck with those fellas, to be honest.
All right. And wasn't there another band that you had super strong feelings about?
Rose Tattoo, for
That's
sure. That's the one with Angry Anderson as the lead singer. Referring back to the Neighbours comment that we had before, he actually sang the wedding song for Kylie Minogue and Jason Donovan, called Suddenly, which was very, very different and outside of what he was, like the bad guy rock and roll sort of persona he was trying to project. But look, Rose Tattoo had a couple of good hits. Again, a pub band around the same era as the Angels. I haven't got to see them yet, but I do believe they are touring now. So hopefully, with everything that's going on, they do get to continue touring, and I actually get to see them for once. So that'll be good.
So I think they're touring in the US.
Oh God, I hope not.
Yeah,
they're going to come back with COVID.
COVID doesn't affect Australian people.
Okay, got it.
But yeah, they are in the US at the moment.
So I have a question that I want to ask both of you guys when each of you, when you talk about music. What American rock band did you think was super huge here that may have been bigger there? And you were surprised to find out they weren't really big here?
It's a great question.
Wow.
It is a good question.
Wow.
Yeah.
That rattles the brain a bit.
The Germans have Hasselhoff, and when I would tell my German friends, this was pre-internet, when they were like, oh, Hasselhoff, and I'm like, who? And then when they explained who it was, I was like, hold on. No, that guy is not a musician. He's an actor. And they're like, no. And they would like show me tapes. And I was like, what? I didn't even know. I don't even know if they were US releases. I would have to look that up. So I just wonder if you guys had anything like that.
She goes back to Hasselhoff. My God.
Yeah.
That's a deep cut. I do think we spent a good amount of time on that man's musical endeavors at one point. We did.
Hofmeister.
Yes.
We did.
Was
We
he a
totally
musician?
did.
Was he? Oh God.
Oh, he's like in Europe,
Yeah.
in some
Yeah, he's
European
huge.
countries, he is like Michael Jackson. And here,
Oh,
I'm gonna look it up. I can't remember if he even had US releases. Like, not only did they not release his music, they wanted to make sure we didn't know about his music.
No, we went
Otherwise,
over
it shows-
we went over the numbers, and we couldn't believe, I think, the number of albums he sold or something
Yeah.
like that over there. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but you ask the average American, and it's like,
Say
have
what?
you heard of David Hasselhoff's latest album? We were like, he sings.
Yeah, exactly. He makes music? Okay. Yeah, he was international star of the year. I mean, yeah, that just doesn't, it's bonkers. So I just wondered if you guys had something like that where there was a US band that was huge in Australia and we don't like them.
well, we mostly
I
without
could say
internet.
Nickelback.
Oh God, stop it. You are not allowed to talk about Nickelback on this show.
Man,
Hey,
Adrian, you're a long-time listener. You know better.
That's why I said it.
that's twice this year already. We're
Am I
over
gonna
our
have to
quota.
start another petition?
I think David Hasselhoff might be that outlier. You know, I don't think there's too many other bands that.
There are
Money.
though. There's British bands too that were like big here but not there. It happens all the time. That stuff happens all the time.
But to
That's
that
why-
degree, though, that's what I'm
No,
saying.
probably not. No, you're probably right. Well, I don't. No, in other countries, no. You're probably right. That's probably like a big anomaly. But there's a lot of bands that are big in Japan, pun intended, that aren't big anywhere else. You know?
Alphaville.
So who knows? Okay, were you guys ABBA fans?
Oh, all of
No.
Australia's ABBA fans. You go to any 60-year-old birthday, you know, anyone over 60, and all you hear is ABBA all night long. For God's sake.
I love ABBA. God damn it! That's one of my guilty
Well,
pleasures.
they did win Eurovision, so they must be pretty big in Europe. Probably Germany too.
Oh, they're
No, they're very
huge
big.
there. Yeah.
They're huge in Australia, especially with the older generation, and yeah, and some of the younger generation because they've been exposed to it by their grandparents and some of the
Well,
older.
Priscilla
Okay.
Queen of the Desert made them chart again. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes,
that
that's
movie,
correct.
It literally made them chart again, and that's when I found out about ABBA. I mean, I had definitely heard. My mom had albums, you know, that she would play, but it wasn't like I recognized it. But after that movie, everybody my age was into ABBA after Priscilla Queen of the Desert.
Okay, I've got a question. All right. So these probably two of the biggest Australian artists in the US. Air Supply
That's true.
and the Bee Gees. Were they as big in
And AC/DC.
Australia as they were in the United States?
I still listen to the Bee Gees. It's one
Yes.
of the best pick-me-ups ever, as far as I'm concerned. You know, it's great music. It's it's great. I love it. What do you guys have to take into account is before the internet came along, we only got dribs and drabs. Like I remember growing up in Melbourne, and to get a Megadeth T-shirt or a Metallica T-shirt, it was like they'll send half a dozen to the country, and man, was I cool when I got my hands on one of them.
Just like
And I wore
getting bourbon.
Yes, it was very similar. That's actually what I was thinking a few minutes ago. It was very similar to it's getting better now, but to getting some really good bourbon. It was, and when one of our friends got a brand new, say, White Snake, or even Def Leppard, you know, one of them songs, it was like, oh wow, can I borrow? And that cassette or that vinyl record will go through about 30 kids, 30 teenagers, you know, until it eventually gets scratched or gets destroyed. And man, I remember like 5, 6 of us will go to each other's houses and just listen to a brand new single, which came out in the States maybe 6 months prior. And we'll just be all night, just repeat. You know,
I miss
Kids
those
these
days.
days don't know how easy they
They
have
don't.
it. You know,
Oh,
it's
they
like,
have
Oh,
no idea.
those days are long gone.
I miss those days. I miss those days when you would wait for it. You had the anticipation. And then, even for us, I would wait in line for a lot of stuff to try to get it the day it was released. And then you would read everything, whether it was the tape or the album cover to
Yep.
cover. Like I could
Yep.
tell you the trademark date, like what,
Yep.
whatever the hell was on there. I read every part of it. And then you listen to it over and over and over. And yeah, there's nothing like that feeling, especially when you're with friends. Like we've talked about this on the show before. I can remember Metallica's "And Justice for All." We were literally sitting at a lunch table with a tape recorder and in the middle, and we're all just the bomb could have gone off and we wouldn't have moved. It's too bad. Too bad.
It was a whole experience.
Yes, it was.
The kids will
Yes,
never
it
know
was.
that, unfortunately.
They won't. No, it's
Yeah.
sad.
Going to
I
the
would
store, buying
imagine.
it.
I would imagine you guys would get a lot of stuff from Japan and from Asia quicker, though. I mean, they always had special releases and shit that we never got here.
a lot of it. I remember reading some of the labels, especially just before the CDs came out, and when the CDs started coming out. A few guys used to get some stuff in, but there was mainly, I remember there was only one store in all of Sydney in the city, and we used to catch the train, 2-hour train ride into town. So you leave in the morning and you go into town and you go into Utopia Records, I think it used to be called, and you'll go downstairs and man, you could stay there most of the day, and you'll ask if you got the new album or the new vinyl record, whatever band, and trust me, most of the time they didn't have it because it was already sold out. And basically what they brought in is what we got exposed to. But a lot of Australians, they make their own mind. So we didn't just grab it and say, oh, this is great, just because we had it. A lot of records we just said, this is shit, we're not going to listen to this crap. So we make up our own mind, and it was quite an experience growing up that way. Just
So
the merchandise too.
You were outside of Sydney, so Adrian,
I've always lived outside Sydney, yeah.
Okay, but Adrian, you were would you consider where you grew up more remote, or was it different because you had so much
Absolutely.
tourism? It was more remote.
Very remote. Not as many big music stores at all. We just had a couple of little chain stores. Used to go there and flick through the cassettes and just see what was there. I wasn't a big vinyl man, believe it or not. But one thing we did have here was a TV show, Vic will attest to this, called Rage. So Saturday morning, they'd start the top 50 countdown at about, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday morning, and they'd play all the top 50, counting it down to one. And, the amount of times you'd get up, you'd be sitting there eating your cereal, watching Rage, actually recording it on your VCR so you can have it again later.
There you go.
The old VCR. But and also, in saying that, they did start it, I just remembered now, they used to start at midnight on the Friday night, Saturday morning, and that's when they'd play a lot of the newer stuff, and that's where we'd get exposed to it. Well, I would get exposed to it because we only had AM radio stations, which were shit. And exactly. So FM radio didn't hit up north until the early 90s. And and so that's when we were, so that was 92, I believe, was one of the first FM radio stations up in Cairns. And until then it was just AM radio and a lot of older stuff, hence your a lot of country too, for some reason, which
oh my God, don't get me started
too much of that as a
on
kid.
the country. Oh my
this
God,
is 90s country.
Yeah, but you guys on your Australian country. So I watch a lot of Acorn TV. So I would say 98% of TV that I watch, I don't have cable, is British and Australian shows, and there's a lot more New Zealand shows now, right? The Aussies' obsession with country is bizarre. I don't understand it. It's terrible. I'm sorry to say, it is terrible. And now my husband makes fun of me every time one of the shows starts and it's some country music, like every song is, and it's like the shows are also like, am I watching a music video here? Am I watching an opera? Like, why is there so much music for such long periods of time in these shows? So yeah, sorry, but I'm not a fan of your country music at all.
Getting
That's all right.
getting FM radio, it was like, when HDTV first came out and you could see the picture clear. So to us, that transition, because we used to throw a cassette and just press record and record everything. Because it was a rarity, at times it was a rarity. The mainstream radio never used to play heavy rock. So for some of us, it was very hard we couldn't listen to mainstream radio. Only when they had the top, like Adrian said, they had the top 50 countdown, they couldn't help it. And they banned. I remember very well being in high school and waiting for a certain video clip to come on, and it would just be banned because it was just that slight bit too heavy, too much guitar, too much metal on it. And that transition from AM to FM for the younger generation, if anyone listening to these under, say, 30 years old, just imagine when you guys are watching a really old movie that hasn't been, it's just the original tape and it's just that old picture. And when you watch an HD, it was the same for us. It was like, wow, quick. The sound, it was totally different. It was like an all new experiment. It was fun. Wow, it was the best. We could put it loud in the car. It didn't distortion. It was awesome. And Adrian, you attested that. How good was that? Listen, it was like being there.
It's like putting a second earbud in. It was just a complete new experience. So yeah, it was great.
It was awesome.
Wow, that's amazing. So, Vic, what would you say were your biggest favorite Aussie bands growing up?
Rat Cat. Love Rat Cat. I actually grew my hair. And my idol, and wore the same kind of denim, dark denim, and very thin, clean shaven all the time. Akadaka, of course, AC/DC. They always, anyone, I haven't met anyone that didn't like AC/DC, and if there's someone out there, they just haven't heard enough of them. You just got to listen a bit more. And of course, some of the smaller bands, because being isolated, growing up in a different generation, being isolated, you start appreciating live music much more. And when you go to a live show, and these guys, they're small time bands, and they just play for you. Imagine a small bar, a couple hundred people, and none of the big concerts. And you really appreciate it. You really give them credit for that. And then you get other bands that make it big, like Silverchair. They actually made it big over there first, then in Australia. And then they started growing. I used to hate Silverchair in the beginning. I used to say, "What is shit? What are these wankers?" And then you start listening to it, and it grows on you, and wannabes, because we used to that older style bands, and some of the softer pop too, some of the strong bands. You see someone make big overseas, you're always happy for them. But the main ones were AC/DC and Rat Cat, to me, the smaller bands. And the Angels, the Divinyls too. It's not as heavy rock, but the Divinyls, they actually were one of the Divinyls. And let's go back even further down. Jimmy Barnes with Cold Chisel. The Divinyls and Cold Chisel, they were some of the bands that they actually were there for us. They didn't make much money playing live, but they would tour the whole country. Imagine, in the States, I'm not sure, but I believe in the States, a lot of touring is done in stadiums, like football stadiums at a bigger. But these guys were only in the pubs, only in bars. You can only fit about 100 people in a bar. So how much money you're not going to become a millionaire. But they just were there year after year, going and going. And that's how you grow a following, a strong, loyal following. So those two bands are up there with me. Even AC/DC, bar to bar. The Divinyls, great music. Guys, Divinyls, go and listen to them.
They were huge. I mean, they were massive here. Massive. They were huge here. What did you guys think of Midnight Oil? Because we had a bit of a discussion on part 1 of our Aussie series about Midnight Oil and my introduction to them. And what I learned from the band, because I didn't, I mean, I don't know how, especially back when I went to school, I mean, we weren't necessarily taught about our own history, forget anyone else's colonizer history. So they opened up a lot of interesting discussions, especially as a teenager. So I'm just curious, what was that like in Australia for you guys? Because they were definitely very socio-political.
They were very censored in Australia heavily at times, depending on which government was in power. And I think that actually worked to their advantage because, like I said before, live music, you grow a big following. They were slightly for a different demographic. Great music, and they polarized with their lyrics. They polarized a lot of because you got to realize, Australia being such a small country, the media, it still is to a certain extent, but the media was controlled by certain powerful people. And the last thing they want to know is embarrassing history. And these guys were just exposing everything. So they were polarizing it. They were great music. They were awesome. And they put the money where the mouth is. They actually donated a lot of money, which is great. I think they lost, came to us, I don't know, Adrian, you might agree with me or correct me, but it came, in Sydney and Melbourne particularly, it came to a time they lost a little bit of touch with people, especially when, this after they broke up. Mind you, I don't know over there in the States, but in Australia, when a band breaks up, they still have following. We still keep listening to it, even though there's no new albums coming in, new material, we still follow them. So we'll be listening to an album 10 years ago when someone's band doesn't exist anymore, and it was the same. If they got together tomorrow, everyone will go and watch it. So there's albums still being produced, and then with the internet coming on, being downloaded, then my guess is Midnight Oil was you either love them or you hate them. There was no gray area. But they got censored a lot. So I don't know if you guys were aware of that in the States.
I was sure not aware of that. I'm not surprised.
I'm sure the same thing will happen. But it was like this. That show, Rage, best show ever. We'll get up like 6 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock to listen to it. A lot of times, a video clip will not come on. If it was deemed not to be appropriate for children, that's the excuse they used to use.
Yeah.
God, so many bands that came out of Seattle over there, and they'll just cut the video. We wouldn't even watch it. It's like, I'm thinking, you're kidding me? What did they say? Did they say one word? They're like, oh, I don't know. What do you reckon, Adrian? There's a lot of bands in Australia that copped the end of the stick from the media. I reckon AC/DC too at times.
Yeah, when they weren't playing sort of mainstream stuff. But you're right with Midnight Oil. You either love them or you hate them. I still remember I missed the concert. There was one up in Cairns, and to get a concert, up in Cairns was just unreal. But Midnight Oil actually came. There's a little place called Coranda, just to the west of Cairns, and there's an amphitheatre there. And friends of mine went to it, and they said it's one of the best shows they went to, purely because of the steam coming off Peter Garrett's bald head, because he put on such a good show and gave it everything in the humidity of Cairns. And the steam was just pouring off his head. You're right. They were very controversial, but I was a fan. I did enjoy their music. And it's not only just the cultural background, but also Blue Sky Mine was one of the first ones that I listened to, which was the asbestos mine out of Wittenoon in Western Australia, and that was to do with the asbestos miners, and and just to highlight the fact of that. So they weren't only just doing our cultural history; it was everything, and it was just getting everyone aware of the issues that are out there that were being swept under the carpet. So it was definitely a good band.
Yeah, they were very anti-establishment. Yeah. If you guys, anyone listening should go and Google up Blue Sky Mine and try read the lyrics about it, or even just a brief description that they have, because you have to realize that not long ago we were under that British establishment mentality, like do as I say, no questions asked, and government always said it's safe, and he died 10 years later, 20 years later. So they were very anti-establishment, and they were out there just to expose the let's say the criminality that the government did in the past and doing at the time. You know, just simple things like that. Mining asbestos, you know, and they wrote a song about it, and a lot of people found out what had happened in history, like Adrian said, through that song.
I'm curious to know about other countries' histories that parallel the U.S. So when music started to get political, I know in the U.S. it was probably the late 60s, early 70s when it was really starting to be around the Vietnam War. Things when things started to really get political in popular music. What would you say would be that time in Australian popular music? Like with, did it come before Midnight Oil, or was Midnight Oil kind of like one of the original?
Came before. Cold Chisel. Remember Adrian? Cold Chisel? The last ship out of Sydney?
Yep.
Remember he's talking about the guys coming back from Vietnam, all fucked up basically. There's no other words for it. Yep. People try and Khe-Sanh. That's one of my favorite. That's probably my favorite Australian song, up there together with Blue Sky Mine. And I've sang that song heaps of times, belted it out at karaoke with friends on my own. It's one of the best. And man. It started before Cold Chisel, but the thing is, that song is the way that song. It's actually a little bit more in a code, Adrian, isn't it? The way Jimmy Barnes throws the lyrics out, it's not as offensive, like in your face. He's very smart about it, like saying, "Look, you know, I'm depressed now. I've got post-traumatic depression." Like I don't think at the time they even realized what it was. It was just have a couple of drinks, you know, to deal with it. But it started long before Midnight Oil. The thing is, a lot of when you go back to the culture side of it, a lot of the native bands, they did not get much airtime unless some in their own communities. But anything that was anti-government, anti-establishment, a lot of times got censorized, and that contributed to their growth. Because Australians. Sure. Australians come from an heritage that always fought the establishment. I mean, England decided, righto, the ships are full, send them to the end of the world. You know, so it was always anti-establishment. And then they wanted to rule. We're Iron Fist now, and that never happened. We didn't have to go to war like you guys. Not yet, anyway.
Well, I'll tell you, Midnight Oil was really, I think it was a very defining band when they first came out, and with Beds Are Burning. And I can remember vividly, and it's on YouTube, an interview with the band, and it was so smart because they were making the correlation to the miners, the coal miners, the U.S. coal miners, and they were making the relations to the Native Americans and, you know, how their land was stolen. And it was just so smart and so eye-opening at the time, the age that I was at that time. And really, really, they had quite a platform because in a way they weren't talking about our history. So I think that's why the press permitted it here and they got so much press and they were able to speak so freely because it was like, oh, you're talking about your own bullshit. That's fine. Just don't talk about our bullshit too much and we'll let you keep talking. So, I mean, they were really able to get their point across in ways that, I mean, and what better source of media to do that in the United States, especially back then. So, you know, I will always respect them for that, and hats off to them for, you know, sparking a conversation that may not have happened, and, you know, opening our eyes to our own injustices as well. So I would have to say they're probably my favorite band out of Australia.
They've influenced a lot of American musicians. So that came in the early 90s. I mean, you watch interviews with Eddie Vedder or Billy Joe from Green Day, and they always list Midnight Oil as one of their big influences. So big bands took from them.
Yeah, they were
Garrett
massive.
Joined the government. You guys probably aware, Peter Garrett went on and became a politician.
Yeah, he's Parliament, right?
Oh wow.
Yeah, he went,
Yeah.
joined the Labour Party, and he did a couple of good things, but then he just couldn't handle the ugly side of it, and he got out in the end.
Smart move.
That's the shame, though, is that so many people, not to turn this into a political discussion, but I mean, this has happened before with our, musicians or artists or actors. If you want to do something good, your inclination would be, well, let me get in there where the power is, and then do good by the people. And it doesn't work like that, unfortunately. So
No.
that's a common thread. If you really have the right, if you're really doing it for the right reasons, it usually isn't successful, which is a damn shame.
That's correct. Yeah, unfortunately.
And on that note, I'm going to play a little song and then we will wrap it up.
Ain't nobody gonna steal this heart away. Ain't nobody gonna steal this heart away. When the war is over, got to get away.
So that is Cold Chisel with When the War's Over. What a voice. Holy crap.
Yes. If you guys come to Australia, we'll go down to Georgia, and then we'll drive another half an hour, and we'll go and see Jimmy Barnes, because he's got his country home down there. Or maybe we'll pick up Jimmy Barnes, and we'll go to Georgia and get drunk there.
There you go. I'm in.
Sounds like a plan to me.
I'm in. As soon as we kick coronavirus ass, I'm there. Let's do it.
I just want to say something. That I just want to say thank you to a radio station in Australia. While all the mainstream was refused to play some of the heavier rock, and sometimes not rock at all. You'll spend days and days without listening to a rock song. But there was a radio station in Australia that they kept it. Triple M. Adrian, I'm sure you'll agree with me. If it wasn't for Triple M, I don't think either of us will be here talking about rock in this podcast.
No.
Triple M.
No, not. And look, I got exposed to Triple M when I moved to Brisbane in '97. So, yeah, that's when it just blew my mind. I'm like, wow, they're actually playing this stuff on the radio. And but yeah, it's the Cold Chisel, the Midnight Oil, the Angels, the Divinals, all the stuff we talked about. And that was just, and then they play the new stuff, your Powderfinger, even the old Hoodoo Gurus and stuff like that. It's just it's the radio station to listen to when you're here in Australia. It's as simple as that.
Working class
Australia
men.
wide now.
Yes, working class men all over Australia, where you're a miner, working on the fields, especially truck driving. That will be switched onto Triple M, and that's what you listen to, because a lot of the rock songs, especially coming from Australia, would be about the working life, working on the mine, trucking, driving days non-stop. And I would just like to thank Triple M, because wow, if it wasn't for them, we would have missed out on a lot.
So Triple M Sydney was launched in 1980, and then you got I'm trying to read through it really quick because I'm just curious. But yes, and then there was several. You have Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth, and so on and so on. But the first one was Sydney in 1980. So this is a good time to start a radio station, I'll tell you.
Yeah, and they went through tough times too, because you need the licensing, and there was always limited licensing, especially for the FM stations at the time. And it was hard for them, and not everyone's going to advertise with you when you're playing not mainstream stuff. But
good point.
They kept at it. They kept at it, good and and especially some of the bands going to America and doing really well over there, coming back with a little bit of money, and they're going for those interviews, live interviews. And Triple M actually transmitted some live concerts, a lot of Midnight Oil concerts, a lot of Cold Chisel, Jimmy Barnes concerts, Angels, and you imagine being on the other side of the country and listening to a concert.
Wow.
It was amazing. It was like, for us, it was like electric cars coming on, or space travel. It was unbelievable. It was something that, being a part of life, it just doesn't matter if you're down the shits, especially being a lot of teenagers being isolated. You switch on Triple M if you could. And with time, eventually, with more antennas being set up, with time, it expanded to throughout the country. So thank you, Triple M.
Yes, thank you, Triple M. That's awesome.
Cheers.
Yep.
Well,
Yeah,
thank
that's a
you
good one, Vic.
guys so much for being on the show with us tonight. Thank you so much for sending the samples. I really appreciate it. I've enjoyed everything that was sent to me. And thank you, Adrian, for my Tim Tams, which I can't eat now, but I will. I
Oh,
blew
yeah.
through my other one that he sent me. They were gone
are.
and gone.
When we're out of here, we got to do the Tim Tam Slam.
Okay, so next we'll do it when I can't eat anything right now. So when I'm able to start eating again, we're gonna do it. I promise. We're gonna do the Tim Tam challenge, and I'm doing it with my Builder's tea because that's my favorite tea. So boom, we're gonna do it. Me and you.
Save
I'll
me
tell
right.
you.
Really. Yeah.
Oh my God, Matt, I'll give you some Tim Tams too because you're.
All right.
I'll give you some at the office, and we'll all do it together. Definitely.
Sounds
So. Thank you so much thanks for your support. Thanks for hanging out with us. This was an awesome show. And that's our Aussie series, not a Kiwi series.
No.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Well, yeah, thank you very much. It's been great.
Yes.
Matt?
Guys. All right. So follow us on Instagram, please, at Metal Rock Whiskey. And we are on Twitter at Metal Whiskey. Want to thank our guests again. Great time. Again, thank you guys for making the time coming on. Huge time difference, obviously, but we got it done. That's what's important. So follow and subscribe on our YouTube channel, Metal Rock Whiskey, of course. If you watch, make sure to hit that thumbs up and turn on that bell right below this video here to get the notifications every time we upload new content. Of course, all five of us are all over the socials.
Yes.
You can find me if you want to see what I'm drinking, if you want to see pictures of my cute fucking kids. You can follow me at the Whiskey Obsessor.
They are
Whiskey
cute.
Save the E. Yeah, they're
I can
kind of cute.
confirm.
They're kind of cute.
Ben the Chin. Happy birthday, Ben.
Yes.
Yeah, happy birthday.
The big one. Yes.
The big one. Uno.
Yes. Uno.
Not one chin, but he's 1 year old.
1 year old. Multiple chins. 1 year.
I love it. Vic and Adrian, do you want to tell the folks where they can find you on the socials?
Yeah, well, I'm mainly on Instagram. As you can see written on the bottom there is that_whiskey save the E _place. Just something a little bit I've got going in the background, hopefully to be up and running later. But yeah, that's where I'm found there. Just happy to chat whiskey, and yeah, always up for a chat.
You guys can find me also on Instagram, vic.whiskey with the E. I actually took that name one day. We're playing around at work, and one guy goes, "Why don't you call yourself Vic Whiskey?" And I go, "God, that's a bit corny, isn't it?" He goes, No, you know your whiskey." I go, "Yeah, come on, man." And then he goes, and then he showed me the Morse code. Not the Morse code, the Morse code thing. And then in front of it had another code in there, tango and all that for the each letter. And he goes, "Look, Vic Whiskey." And I go, "Wow." So yes, I took it from there, took his advice, and yeah, Vic.whiskey. And as long as my nose and palate, thank you, Adrian. That was a very nice compliment when you said at the beginning of the show. I got a good nose. As long as my nose and palate are refined, I'll keep doing reviews. And as soon as my palate decides to turn to shit, well, I'll stop reviewing. I'll just post photos. So until then, I'll keep reviewing. And I buy my stuff. I don't accept free bottles from distillers or anything, because if you are a distiller, you know, it costs a lot of money to. A lot of influencers will not like this, but it costs a lot of money to make whiskey. It's not for free. So last thing you should be doing is asking for free shit from distillers.
Amen.
Touche.
All right. Well, I am Sailor Guevara. I'm easy to find all over the place on Instagram and Facebook. You can also find me at Sailor Cocktails on Instagram. And just so I can make Ed happy tonight, you can also purchase a cocktail box or a whiskey tasting box or a cigar and whiskey tasting box from SailorGuevara.com. Mr. Matthew helps me pack up those kits, and we have a great time. It's a dream come true, and all of you that have supported us, it's been phenomenal, and I appreciate it so much. And we have a new cocktail mix coming out soon that will be the official cocktail mix of Metal Rockin' Whiskey. Just a little dab will do it in your whiskey, so I cannot wait to release that. So stay tuned to SailorGuevara.com. And if you want to talk politics and hear me rant, you can find me on Twitter. Otherwise, fuck off. Ed?
Fantastic. I can attest to the cocktail boxes. They are good. And if you want to find me or follow me, you can find me on Instagram, hanging out there usually at Bourbon Geek. And hey, listeners, if you love us or even just like us, do what Matt said. Go to our page, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, show us a little love. It doesn't cost you a cent, but it really helps us out, so we'd really appreciate it. And other than that, tune in next time for another episode of Metal Rockin' Whiskey.
And on that note, I don't know if I have a major fuck you tonight. It's probably the least amount of cursing I've done on a show in a long time, to be honest. So how's about we just listen to a song from a lovely lady